You know, some cities are just dots on a map. And then there's Istanbul. This isn't just a place, it's a main character in the grand story of humanity. We're talking about a city that's been the prize of empires, the bridge between worlds, for thousands of years. So let's peel back the layers and get into its incredible story. So, how does a city like this even begin? Well, it doesn't start with a blueprint or a grand design. It starts with a riddle, a really strange prophecy about a land of the blind that guided one man to arguably the most important piece of real estate on the planet. And believe me, that one prophecy kicked off a story that's still unfolding today. All right, so let's rewind. We're going way back to the ancient Greeks, to a small settlement that had no idea it was destined to become the capital of not one, but two of the most powerful empires in history. This is where it all began, with a city called Byzantium. Okay, so get this. The prophecy tells the founder, a guy named Byzas, to build his city opposite the land of the blind. A bit cryptic, right? But when Byzas sails into the Bosphorus, he sees an existing settlement on the Asian shore. And it clicks. He realizes they were the blind ones. They'd completely missed this incredible piece of land on the European side, a natural fortress. Just like that, he knew. This was the place. Now, when you've got a location that good, everyone's going to want a piece of it. And they did. For centuries, the city was like a hot potato, passed between the Persians, the Spartans, the Athenians, you name it. The Romans eventually took over, but the real turning point, the moment that changed everything, was in 330 AD. That's when a certain Roman emperor, Constantine the Great, showed up with some very big plans. And just like that, everything changes. The city gets a rebrand. It's no longer Byzantium. It's Constantinople, the new Rome. It becomes the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, the center of the Christian world. And this is where things really take off, launching a golden age of wealth and power that's hard to even imagine, all spearheaded by one of its most famous emperors. Under Emperor Justinian, this place was an absolute powerhouse. Think of a modern-day megacity, but in the 6th century. We're talking over 500,000 people packed inside its famous walls, a crazy mix of cultures, languages, and ideas. It wasn't just a major city, it was the city, the undisputed center of the known world. But here's the thing about golden ages. They can be fragile. And in 532 AD, the city almost burned to the ground. And get this, it all started because of a sports riot. Seriously, rival chariot racing fans got into it, and it escalated into a massive rebellion against the emperor. Fires everywhere, half the city destroyed, 30,000 people dead. For a hot minute, it looked like it was all over. But Justinian was a master of turning crisis into opportunity. He didn't just patch things up, he went bigger. From the smoldering ruins, he built a city that was even more glorious than before. We're talking incredible aqueducts, the mind-bendingly huge underground basilica cistern, and the crown jewel of it all, the new Hagia Sophia. A building so beautiful, so massive, people literally believed angels must have helped build it. Of course, golden ages don't last forever. The next few centuries were tough. The city was basically in permanent defense mode. It was constantly under siege from enemies on the outside. But the really dangerous threats, well, those started coming from the inside. So how did they survive all these attacks? Well, they had an ace up their sleeve, a top secret weapon called Greek fire. Nobody to this day knows the exact formula, but imagine a substance they could spray from ships that would burst into flames, even on water. It was like a medieval flamethrower, and it was absolutely terrifying. This stuff literally saved the city from being conquered on more than one occasion. All right, so this is where the story takes a truly bizarre and tragic turn. I want you to really think about this question. How does a Christian army, an army of crusaders sent to liberate the Holy Land, end up attacking and destroying the biggest, most powerful Christian city in the world? It sounds insane, right? Well, it happened. The plan was supposed to be simple. Go to Jerusalem. But things got complicated. You had a potent mix of political backstabbing, religious tension, and, well, a whole lot of greed. The Venetians, who were funding the crusade, basically hijacked it. They saw a chance to knock out their biggest economic competitor, Constantinople, and they convinced the Crusaders to do their dirty work for them. And what followed was just a nightmare. A complete betrayal. For 3 days, these so-called holy warriors looted, burned, and destroyed everything in sight.
They stole ancient treasures, desecrated churches. It was an absolute catastrophe. The city was left a smoldering ruin, not by an outside enemy, but by fellow Christians. It was a wound that honestly never truly healed. The city limped on after that, but it was just a ghost of what it once was. It was weakened, broke, and alone. And that's when it faced its ultimate test. A new, rising superpower was on the scene, the Ottoman Empire, led by a young, brilliant, and incredibly ambitious sultan who had his eyes set on one prize. I mean, look at these numbers. It's the ultimate David versus Goliath story. On one side, you have maybe 7,000 defenders, led by the last emperor of Rome. On the other, a massive Ottoman army of over 100,000. And they brought a game changer. Enormous cannons, the likes of which the world had never seen, designed for one purpose, to turn those legendary walls into rubble. And for 53 brutal weeks, they held on. It was one of the most heroic last stands in history. But it couldn't last. On the morning of May 29th, the final assault came. The walls were breached, and the last emperor, Constantine XI, reportedly threw off his royal insignia and charged into the fray, dying as a common soldier. And with him died the Roman Empire, a legacy that had stretched for over 2,000 years. But here's the twist. The fall of the city wasn't the end of its story. Not even close. For the man who conquered it, Sultan Mehmed II, this wasn't about destruction, it was about creation. This was the start of a whole new chapter, a glorious rebirth for the city. Sultan Mehmed, now known as the Conqueror, knew exactly what he had. He immediately declared it the new capital of his empire and kicked off a huge rebuilding program. Yes, he turned the Hagia Sophia into a mosque, a powerful symbol, but he also did something amazing. He sent out an open invitation to people of all religions and backgrounds to come and make this city their home. And it worked. The city, which people now started calling Istanbul, boomed again. It became this incredible melting pot, a truly multicultural capital where Muslim, Christian, and Jewish communities all thrived. It was a new kind of cosmopolitanism under a new empire, and it was spectacular. This leads us to the city's second golden age, under leaders like Suleiman the Magnificent. I mean, this is the era of the legendary architect Mimar Sinan, who filled the skyline with some of the most beautiful mosques in the world. This is when the Grand Bazaar becomes the center of world trade, when coffee houses pop up everywhere. Istanbul was once again the glittering jewel of a mighty empire. And you know the pattern by now. History takes another turn. The centuries roll by, and the once mighty Ottoman Empire starts to weaken. Europe is modernizing at lightning speed, and Istanbul finds itself in a frantic race against time, forced to reinvent itself all over again. The change was fast and furious. The sultans moved into lavish European-style palaces. The city got one of the world's very first subway systems, and then the big one. The Ottoman Empire collapsed. After 600 years, it was over. The modern Republic of Turkey was born. The capital was moved to a new city, Ankara, and the name was officially changed to Istanbul. Imagine that. For the first time in 16 centuries, this city was no longer the capital of an empire. But did it fade away? Absolutely not. Its story just took another pivot. The 20th century saw the city explode in size. Look at these numbers. From 1.5 million people in 1960 to over 15 million today. It morphed from this ancient imperial capital into a massive, sprawling, modern megacity, a powerhouse of culture and commerce. So that brings us to today, and to one last big question. This city has worn so many masks. It's been a pagan port, the capital of Christian Rome, the jewel of an Islamic empire, and a secular Turkish metropolis. It has died and been reborn again and again. So as it stands today, right on that timeless bridge between worlds, what's next? What will be the next identity of Istanbul? Its next chapter is being written right now.